Now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com, the SEC writer for the Bleacher Report, it's Barrett Sallee. How you doing, Barrett?
Good, Brian. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you very much for coming on with us today. You look at the SEC as a whole. Here it's all focused on one ball game at Kyle Field tomorrow morning. Texas A&M and Johnny Football going up against the vaunted LSU defense. How do you think this thing breaks down?
Well, it's really intriguing, honestly, because of what Johnny Manziel's been able to do this year, obviously. Getting some Heisman talk as a true freshman means you're doing something right. It's the one thing that I'm kind of approaching it with caution, because the one time we saw Johnny Manziel in this A&M offense against a good, fast, physical defense was against Florida, and Florida made a lot of second-half adjustments and really shut that entire offense down in the second half, held A&M to 49 total yards in the second half. So, that was their first game of the year, so that was, that can be used, I guess, really as an excuse. But, LSU, obviously with Barkevious Mingo and Sam Montgomery at defensive end, those guys are going to be huge, trying to keep, Johnny Manziel from breaking contain. And, I will be very interested to see what Kevin Sumlin and Cliff Kingsbury come up with, because they saw what Florida did to adjust to that offense. They know it now, and now it's basically the ball's in their court. They have to figure out what to do.
How impressed were you, how surprised were you by what LSU was able to do against a very good South Carolina team last week?
Very surprised, particularly what they were able to do offensively with that offensive line that was had a bunch of issues. Obviously, Chris Falk was out. Then obviously the Alex Hurst, the uncertainty with him that last week created a bunch more of uncertainty along an offensive line that was really average at best, and that maybe being too kind to them throughout the season. But they really dominated South Carolina's front seven, and that was really, really surprising, because they have not dominated anybody all year, and to do it against South Carolina is a big deal. So we'll see if that continues. That honestly, if LSU is going to win this football game, it has to continue, because DeMontre Moore and that Texas A&M front seven is pretty good too. So that was the biggest thing that I took out of that game, and I was very surprised to see it.
And the other thing about that is, if you're LSU and you want to beat Texas A&M in a rowdy atmosphere at Kyle Field, it would seem like you want to control the ball and control the clock and keep it out of Manziel's hands as much as possible.
Well, yeah, and that's what LSU does really anyway, because they still aren't really comfortable with Zach Mettenberger. The offensive line last week certainly helped him, but he didn't look very comfortable, even when he got good protection. So they're going to try to do that anyway. They found a new running back last week with Jeremy Hill, so they've got that four-headed monster back, even though Alfred Blue is out. Jeremy Hill steps right in his place. So, yeah, they're going to run the ball and play defense. That's what LSU does. They have to hope Mettenberger doesn't make mistakes, and he has a couple times this year. That's what almost cost them the game at Auburn a couple weeks ago. So, that will be their MO. They want to keep it out of A&M's hands, and they certainly have the personnel to do that.
You're talking about the A&M folks, and they're all saying what you just mentioned a few minutes ago, that if they'd have just had that ball game against Louisiana Tech to get their feet on the ground before they played Florida, they feel like it would have been a completely different outcome. Based on what you've seen from Florida now and knowing how good they are, and obviously the BCS likes them too, is there any merit to that at all, you think?
No, not at all. Florida's a significantly better football team. Defensively, Florida is one of the best defenses in the country, and really Mike Gillislee and what he was able to do as a running back this year, that wouldn't have changed had A&M played Louisiana Tech the week before. So I don't think there's any merit to that at all. Basically A&M got shut down in the second half. The game against Louisiana Tech couldn't have simulated what Florida's defense was going to do to A&M in the second half, so I don't buy that at all.
Eyeball test, who do you think has the better defense, Florida or LSU?
I would say Florida at this point. LSU statistically is significantly better, but Florida, when they play their game, and they play their game, several times this year. Matt Elam has been great. They've withstood injuries. Jelani Jenkins is hurt. Greg, he's back. Riggs, obviously, in the secondary is out. Dominique Easley's been banged up, and they still just kept on going. They just keep plugging away. So I think, statistically, obviously, LSU would get the upper hand, but Florida man, that's a really good defense.
Another one of the themed stories of this ball game tomorrow, a lot of people around here believe that this is a referendum on Big 12-style football versus the SEC, although A&M obviously is now a Southeastern Conference team. They're still playing that wide-open, high-flying type of offense that most of the schools in the Big 12 play, and so a lot of people feel like this could be an indicator of which style can win, or can that style win in the Southeastern Conference. What's your opinion on that?
I don't necessarily buy that much. I think you certainly could make that argument, and I do understand where it's coming from. But LSU is different from Florida, different from South Carolina, different from Alabama. So is it a referendum on that style? I don't know. Different teams match up in different ways regardless of style. So. I think if LSU comes out ahead, does that mean the SEC style is always going to win? No. I think it just means that LSU's defense, and particularly the defensive ends, are fast and physical enough to take care and limit that spread option or spread attack that A&M runs. And if A&M beats LSU, it depends on how they beat them. And if their DBs get lit up like Christmas trees, then I don't necessarily think that that's a referendum on SEC style football. It just may mean that LSU's defense or defensive backs and secondary is a little young and inexperienced, which they are. So no, I don't buy into that at all.
Okay, so how do you think this thing comes out tomorrow?
I think LSU controls the game with their defense. Manziel will make some plays and put some points on the board and keep A&M close. But I think LSU wins 27-21. It'll be a fourth quarter game, but LSU in the end, they just have far too much firepower on the defensive side of the football, and then that running attack just wear out A&M. I think that with what Jeremy Hill was able to do yesterday, throw him in with the mix with Kenny Hilliard and the rest of that running back bunch, that's just going to be too much for A&M to handle.
Barrett, we thank you very much for coming on. We love reading your stuff in the Bleacher Report, and we hope you have a great weekend, buddy.
All right, thanks, Bryan.
All right, Barrett Sallee from the Bleacher Report on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.